So when I came to the program yesterday and I heard all this other talent was going to be here, instead of just from the buyer side of it and what we do to buy seed, I thought let's talk about the process of how we access seed. When I heard that Jack was going to be here and John was going to be here, and then Greg, of course, who is the regulatory side of things, who we bump into productively all the time, regularly. So if you want to, I got a pass-up going around with this kind of my contact information, and just one more slide about our points of discussion for today. I didn't make a big program with a lot of slide work. Okay.
Can I just take that away?
Yes, you can. Hey, I'm an agronomist. I'm not a technologist. So she wanted me to talk first about growing seed and what we want to make sure. If you grow small grains, whether it's oats, winter rye, winter wheat, spring or barley, the fertility aspect of this is fairly simple. There's organics, and you can achieve that organically. And it's a little bit different growing it for seed. Try to make sure you have a good soil test. It does start with a soil test, and obviously I think it's important to be in balance. So if your soil test reveals that you're low on potash and you might be going to a small grains that is at risk for standability, don't be surprised if it doesn't stand, because potassium is very important for standability. If you're in a light soil and you have available nitrogen from other sources, but you don't have a lot of organic matter, don't forget about the sulfur, because all the nitrogen in the world without some sulfur to make that efficient is pretty stupid. I talk kind of plain like an agronomist. So we're going to get into talking about what the advantages of growing for a seed market can be. And it's a whole lot different than seed people would use. We use a term not derogatorily, not intentionally, but it is brown bagging seed, which you have a right to do, to grow for your own farm. That's great. But then you might be missing out on new genetics, newer developments. Crop Improvement does a really nice job, along with the university, in bringing on newer product. And if you're going to grow seed for the market, do you want to be growing an oat that is, I'll go really ancient, the Ogle generation, which has got one advantage left. It's non-PVP. That means it can be cheap. And sometimes the progress on having good seed with that is compromised because of that. Other times, there is good Ogle out there, and it has a good point, especially if you have big fields and you can stay away from rust, because Ogle oats gets rust by the time you're done spelling the word. So there's value in what product you would grow. Laker oat right now, or Antigo oat, two products that have very good modern characteristics. Laker oat is a fantastic forage oat, very productive. Antigo oat is the first oat in my life. I'm from eastern Wisconsin. We're kind of small grains. It never quite fits the Arlington, or as we talked yesterday with a customer of the business. You know, he grew, 225 bushel oat, and it was simple by DeForest for him. 225 bushel in Ozaki, Manitowoc, Sheboygan, Fond du Lac County, along the lake, is extraordinary. But we grow a lot of 125 to 150 bushel oat. That's pretty good. Go out to the driftless, and that's a pretty good number. They don't grow that very well. So grow for where you're going to have a target market, and then try to grow on doesn't have to be too weed free, because oats is very culturally compatible. Crowding out, nice, it can be done without spray. 2,4-D works very nice on oats alone. In eastern Wisconsin, that's kind of the dairy corridor of history, I think, in the state, the concentration Oats was grown as an afterthought very often as a companion cover crop for underseeding with hay. And spraying when you have hay there, 240 is a no-no. As a matter of fact, my father and grandfather would say anything's a no-no. But the reality is MCP-amine was a cheap way of at least getting the mustard out without having, I have 12 brothers and sisters, without having a family that big to go pick all the mustard. Because that was the only way to get mustard control without spray. Today, there's better tools. Now I talked about forage oat, and if you're making an oatlage or an oat hay as a cover crop, maybe a little weeds don't bother us much. But Laker is very productive and goes through, it's pretty short yet too, right Greg? You'd say that's kind of a short stocked product yet. Antigo is even shorter, and why would we want to grow Antigo? Well, I've been around oats all my life. We'd want to grow Antigo because its test weight is fabulous. It's the first time I've ever had test weight oats actually test 50 pounds. And in my career, I've grown along the lake a fair amount of corn that didn't make 50 pounds test weight. So Antigo oats is a rare and unique opportunity, probably for everyone in the room, but it really gets even eastern Wisconsin into the opportunity to deliver high quality oats to the mills of the Twin Cities where they pay premium for a heavy test weight oat. I would think every seed grower would want to be growing some Antigo oats, but there are disadvantages there too a little bit. So we're going to talk about the cash values, unique seed being unique demand. These are the advantages. Greater return on investment. I have 35 years working at a co-op before this job with Deer Creek Seed, and one of the things that was so interesting short number of years back was a certified wheat grower, also growing some certified oats product, experimented a little bit off label using a strobilurin. Probably should use the right name of the product, the BASF product, and he sprayed his oats with it before it was labeled for oats. And his oats, what he sprayed and experimented with, was 40 bushels better with the headline versus without the headline. So the plant health aspect of small grains in response to is an opportunity to demonstrate how you get a higher return on investment with the value for that versus singly production. Because you get a grain value to that improvement too. And the test weight and the straw was better. That worked really well. And of course, a year or two later, the headline label was extended to oats. So with that, I think there's a better chance for a better return on investment for weed control. Cleaners, which is really what Deer Creek Seed started as in the history. Greg knows the founder. Probably been on a board with him. So has Jack been on the board with him. There's a fellow by the name of Bill, just like that, Leakey. And he's an Ashland. I don't go up there very often, as you probably can surmise. And he's a really good seed cleaner. The previous session talked about cleaning grain for, well, Bill could clean grain for food purposes. He has, and we do. Teff grass is a challenged product that we clean that seed. For example, and a few years ago, just about upon my arrival at Deer Creek Seed, he was given 1 million pounds of teff grass seed. Given. With the challenge of clean it. And that 1 million pounds of seed came along with 1 million pounds of sand. And he was able to separate that, developing the process. Some in this room asked the previous session, how do you do these things? You innovate, and you fabricate, and you figure out how to clean. Out of that 1 million pounds of teff grass, after trying it for 4 seasons, he cleaned out 990,000 pounds of teff out of that sand. That's pretty cool. So I think let's talk about the things as an opportunity to grow small grains for seed. And we're gonna pass this down to our panel. I think actually seed cost would be something to throw at John and Jack a little bit, and they should introduce themselves and what they are to this business and our industry, and the roles that their organizations play. Okay, who wants to pick up seed cost and go from there? Jack.
Okay. Anyway, good morning. I'm Jack Kaltenberg, president of the crop improvement. I'm going to ask you to hand these out, and that'll have some value to everyone, because there are some of the things that have been pointed out that are involved. So my history is my grandfather started a company called Kaltenberg of Seeds in 1906. That transition, that company is now gone. I started my business 12 years ago, and I've been president of crop improvement for more than I can remember. Got a degree in agronomy from Madison, been involved in seed production and such forever. Came out of college, diversified farm, 120 milk cows, 120 beef cows, 120 sows, about 350 acres of hybrid seed corn production, and always did small grains, Vicklin oats, heavy in oats in the day that it was a bigger crop in the state. Today I own a family company still. It was founded 13 years ago. It's Partners in Production. We do corn, wheat, which is real big for us, soybeans, cover crops like a number of the people here. So my transition has been my entire life in the seed business, but close enough to agriculture, doing a lot of the raising and such. Today that company, Kaltenberg Seeds, is really two of us. My brother does 5,000 acres of seed production for companies of hybrid corn, does about 700 acres of organic seed corn production, all irrigated central Wisconsin with his two sons. I have a son and daughter in my company, and more in the retail and stronger in the winter wheat. Now, so rich history, transition of what the seed business is all about. So I also president of crop improvement. I'm president of ProSeed. If you look at the wheat varieties and state trials, that's a co-op that was formed to be able to set pricing and to protect value of Forage Plus. It was in Siler, and then Forage Plus, which is the forage oats, and then they also do have their own wheat lineup called ProSeed Genetics, and you'll see that in the state trials. So I'm part of that group, which has been around for about 20 years, and then having my own company with, and we only market in Wisconsin and have about 4 reps. We're in Arlington, Wisconsin. I'm close to University Trials, university location. We do, like I said, corn and soybeans, as well as cover crops. So as crop improvement, giving you a couple points, and a couple would be on page 13 is PVP. And here, I don't want you reading through it, but maybe you want to bend over the tab, and that can give you the reading of what that is. There's a page in there on 29, which is seed sampling. Okay, and I'm going to use a few more terms. One of the issues that I experienced in my life was, I still remember that, anybody know the beady oats? Does that do anything for anybody?
Yeah.
Does it? Okay, so when I was young, 8 years old, beady oats was the release from the university. It went through crop improvement. It was certified seed. We had put on tags. We had an inspector come out and tag every container. And basically that's genetics developed by the university. So the problem, the genetic, and earlier our breeder was actually here, is to get some money back to getting improved varieties. That's the dilemma. How do you capture that value? Just doing it through certification, but not getting it back, and we get a fee, and maybe John will talk about that on the certified, but on the other side is how do we get dollars back to the university to develop more varieties? So certification helps gather some of that value and bring it back. Okay, now so you have licensed varieties that can be certified. You have licensed varieties that are not have to be certified. And in crop improvement and certified seed, we actually inspect the fields, samples come back into the university, they're approved, and a blue tag is issued. There's also another form that we do a green tag, and a green tag basically means it's been inspected, the samples come into Wisconsin Crop Improvement through our lab, and then we effectively generate another tag that's verifying the variety purity and the integrity of that seed and the sample of that seed that you could, if you're into seed production, that you can offer to your customer. The seed market has changed quite a bit, and patenting is, there's a PVP patent, and when that becomes off, or if a university release like Ogle is released, that doesn't have to have certified and such, but we do have companies that make sure it comes through the criteria, and you'll see that they're listed here. And we do offer for private varieties green tag, which goes through the whole inspection process. They're not certified, but they're basically have a green tag that's affixed to ensure that customers have the quality. So I don't want to take too much time. I really want to be more interactive with people asking us questions. And then how do you enter the marketplace? Brown bag was referred to. A lot of us here have the pressure of how can we keep seed costs down, and we get into save seed, brown bag, gravity box in the back corner. I personally sell about 40 to 50,000 bags of soft red winter wheat, and I do know that in some of my customers, I am the source of their seed every other year, and they do plant wheat every year. So I kind of know that gravity box is really mine. Now, by license and whatever, they're not to be saving seed. And it was stated, there was a law that says you can save it for yourself. But if you sell it to somebody, then you're having issues with the seed law and such. And really what I want to say, there's a lot of ways in the seed business, but we want to make sure on improved varieties, somehow money gets back to generate them. Oats, there's no major company like the people of the past, Monsanto, now Bayer, Syngenta, now owned by Kim China, not Dow or DuPont, which is now Dow DuPont going together. There's nobody in that realm at this point because they haven't found the value to capture. So they're capturing value in some of the small grains, and you maybe have more of that to bring value to your customers. So there's a lot of ways that you could get into the seed business in some form of a relationship, legally, ethically, with another company, and then offer some value, increase revenue, maybe some value to your customers, maybe it's in the neighborhood kind of thing. When my grandfather started our company, I think there was 500 or 700 members of crop improvement in the day. In the day, it was public genetics developed and distribution to improve varieties to farmers in Wisconsin. So we have a series of growers who went through this process in various forms and distributed to the community. And now, our membership is around 100, of which there's less than 50 active small grain producers. So it's changed quite a bit. But I don't want to take any more time answering your questions until you ask them.
Let me introduce myself, and I'm going to give some basis for some of the things Jack said. My name is John Petty. I'm Executive Director of Wisconsin Crop Improvement. Prior to coming to Crop Improvement, for 8 years I was a division administrator and Greg's boss, one of his bosses, your best boss. But I've been in ag my entire life. Let me explain. Crop improvement is kind of a misnomer and is just something so you understand. When Wisconsin Crop Improvement, the parent organization, was founded in 1902, it was done by UW agronomy professors and students that got together, and at that time the seed industry was the Wild West. There was basically no regulation of it, and producers, when they bought a bag of seed, had virtually no guarantee what it said on the label was actually in the bag. In terms of purity, variety, germination rate, it was a crapshoot. So in 1902, this group of professors and students got together and founded this organization, and they set out to come up with the idea of a certification process so that people had some level of assurance of what they were buying, what it said on the label, was actually in the bag. That was 1902. Wisconsin was the first. Other states then developed the model, and in 1919, 100 years ago, a national organization was founded that was the Association of Seed Certifying Agencies, and it's sort of Wisconsin Crop Improvement's parent organization. And so that in each state there is a crop improvement or their equivalent, and that we work under these certification guidelines that are uniform from state to state. Wisconsin Crop Improvement is the only authorized seed certification authority in the state of Wisconsin by statute. In addition to seed certification, we also run a seed lab. Let me go through the levels of seed certification so you understand, and I'll chime into what Jack was saying. You either have a university person like Lucia, who was here, or a private person develop a new variety of whatever. That they go through multiple generations to make sure that they're going to have reproducible germination rates, that it's going to be true to type, that it's going to keep the variety, that it's not going to morph in a couple generations out. Once they get that and find one that they think is worth doing an increase on, the next step is breeder seed goes through an increase to what's called foundation seed. And to produce foundation seed, it is, the fields are inspected, there are isolation standards so there's no cross-pollination. There are very, very strict standards in terms of the amount of weeds that can be found in that field, the number of off-types that can be found in that field. It's extremely strict, so that when foundation seed is generated, it's going to be a very pure and true to type seed. The only way you can generate certified seed is to grow it from foundation seed or directly from breeder seed. Okay? I deal with phone calls almost every other day and I do not want to take us down a rabbit trail, I'm happy to talk afterwards, hemp, where somebody says, I bought hemp seed off eBay and I want to become a certified hemp seed grower. It doesn't work like that. Now, I just spoke with somebody yesterday that in hemp, go back to the person that you bought the seed from and find out if they're producing foundation seed. And it's going to be a yes/no answer. If the answer is yes, they should be able to supply you with foundation seed, and you should be able to get into certified seed. But to be clear, to grow certified seed, you're going to have to get foundation seed. And the foundation seed can come from, there are foundation seed organizations. University of Wisconsin runs the one for all UW. It's Wisconsin Foundation Seed. every one of those certified growers in the handbook that Jack handed out gets their seed from a foundation seed. They may get it from Michigan, they may get it from Minnesota, they may get it from Iowa, North Dakota, but they are getting foundation seed for them to grow certified seed. Once you get into foundations, if you're planting foundation seed and you're looking to get certified seed, once again, my staff will come out and inspect the fields, and we have rejected fields. We will tell people that they have to get back out here and rogue this field again because there's too many off types in it. Then it is brought in, sample of the seed is taken once it's harvested, assuming it's passed field inspection, and it's brought into the lab to see if it passes purity and germination rates. I'll give you a horror story, and once again involving hemp. Last year there were 2 growers of certified hemp seed in the state of Wisconsin. One of them passed the field inspection. His seed sample came in, and the standard for certified hemp seed has got to be 80% germination rate. He came back with 1% germination, 90% dormant. According federal seed law, dormant seed is viewed as viable seed. So we say an 80% germination, it's got to be 80% viable, because typically, I contacted Greg immediately and said, Greg, can I issue a tag for somebody that's 1% germ, 90% dormant? And he said, yeah. I literally had to change the printout on my tag to have a line. I modified it to say, because we normally would just say germination rate, I had to say germination rate 1%, 90% dormant, 90%, total viable 91%. The seed was shipped to Kansas. I immediately got a phone call from Kansas Department of Ag, Greg's equivalent, and I'll clean up the speech that was given to me, but it was, what kind of idiots are you issuing a tag with 1% germination? And I had to explain what I just explained to you. So, the point up there, there are pitfalls. The individuals that generated the hemp certified seed, 100% of that went to Kansas at a premium, because at the time Kansas hemp law was that you could only plant certified seed, and there wasn't enough certified hemp seed to satisfy it. So those growers came out doing very, very well last year selling certified seed. But this is going the certified route. This is not for the faint of heart, because our folks are going to come out and inspect your fields 3 to 5 times. It is going to take a heck of a lot of management of your fields. I don't care if it's wheat, oats, corn. We do a heck of a lot of corn certification. Virtually every kernel of that is exported to Canada. That for export regulations, having a certified lot of seed greatly aids in getting export approval. So if you're growing something certified, you've opened up another market. in that way. But we've had situations where somebody has put a heck of a lot of work into what they hope to be a certified field, and it failed. Now, that doesn't mean it's a complete loss. They can sell that as grain. They could sell it as non-certified seed. That I hope that gives you a better idea of sort of the flow of certified seed and what you can do. I mean, there are absolutely opportunities to be had in certified seed, but as I used to tell my son when he was young, with opportunity comes responsibility. Great.
All right. First, does everybody understand dormant seed? Do you know what dormant seed is? Anyone not know? Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, so dormant seed and hard seed can be viable seed. There's a prescribed uniform test for every species, not every. Some of the native species don't have one yet, but they bring it into the lab and they apply the standardized test for hemp seed in this case, and the seed didn't germinate, but it's still viable. They're just saying basically it didn't germinate at this temperature for this time, but it's going to germinate. It's alive. It's going to work. So that's basically what they're saying. It's still good seed. Just didn't work out in the lab the way it was supposed to. So my name is Greg Holmbrecht. I've been with the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture since 1993. I started managing the seed labeling compliance program. Sure. The seed labeling compliance program in 1998. So I've been working with seed for a pretty fair time, and before that I sampled a lot of seed. I also managed the certification process for the export of plants and plant products. Every country in the world has different restrictions on different species of plants and plant products. So like oak logs going to the European Union, they will say white oak logs cannot have this, this, and this. Well, we go out and we inspect and we make sure that those logs don't have this, this, and this, and we write a certificate and off they go. And it's the same for oats, corn, any plant or plant product. So I manage that program as well. Jack, will you put these out too? I heard somebody say cover crops, so that's a good thing. The seed labeling laws are basically, Wisconsin seed labeling laws are basically consumer protection laws. Meaning that you put a label on a bag of seed, you're making a guarantee. We have staff that go out and randomly sample. I say random, but I do have some structure to it. Everybody gets sampled on a 3-year rotation. And they sample seed that's labeled by people, and then we take that sample and bring it to the lab, and we have your label, and we compare the lab results to the label and make sure there's truth in labeling. There's tolerances built into the system, and we apply those tolerances and issue violations based off of that. In addition to the seed labeling laws being consumer protection, we also have to support the Federal Seed Act and the Plant Variety Protection. And this is, I think everybody up here has touched on it a little bit. Plant variety protection is patent pending, or patenting basically for plants. 9 times out of 10, and probably even double that, the seed that you're going to be dealing with in small grains is going to be PVP seed. The older varieties just really aren't out there, the Ogo oats. I mean, people aren't using that anymore. So you have to be very aware of the varieties you're planting. If they're protected variety, and I see them in a brown bag, that first brochure that was handed out, and it says, because in Wisconsin you can label variety not stated on the label. If I see it in a brown bag, if I see oats in a brown bag and it says variety not stated, I'm going to take a sample of that seed and I'm going to do electrophoresis testing on it to compare it to some of the most popular varieties that are planted in the state. And if it's a protected variety, we're going to go down the road of compliance. And I don't have a lot of teeth in my law for it, but every bag is a violation. And then I forward that after the test comes back, and it is a protected variety, and it wasn't labeled properly. I hand that over to the owner of the patent, and they have a lot more power in court than I do that way. So with a protected variety, it has to be labeled by the variety name, and usually has to be sold as a certified class of seed, which is crop improvements throughout the country. So it's very, very important that when you receive seed, you're going to clean seed. There's a statement on the back there that somebody's trying to tell you what they're pretty sure the variety is. You should know what's leaving your farm. You can produce it for your own uses. But if you turn a wheel to sell it, you could be in trouble. So always make sure you know the varieties you're using. So a seed label. You've all seen them. You know, it talks about the variety, the origin, germination, purity, seed labeler's name. Those are all things that have to be on the label. If you're interested in becoming a seed labeler, you know what you're growing. It's not a protected variety. If it is, you've gone down the path of getting permissions to produce it and sell it. That seed labeler's license application, when handed out, you'll need to have that license with the state of Wisconsin to distribute or sell that seed in Wisconsin. Other than that, I don't really have much. I mean, if you guys have questions, I'm here for you. I've got my card up here. Oh, to check on varieties, I just put these on labels. There's a website where you can go in, enter the crop kind, and then the name of the variety, and it will tell you information about the status of that seed. If it's a protected variety, if it was a protected variety, if it's going to be coming off the list soon, things like that. So just some sticky labels if you want them, they're here. So questions?
So you said you can use seed that you grow. What about if you're like a farmer-led group that they all want to go in together on like cover crops and they all save some seed? It can't be put together then and like redistributed in the group? Or is it, I guess how legally would that work if they wanted to produce their own cover crop seed for their own use? Every individual would have to only use what they...
I'm never going to see it on the retail end. Technically, if you distribute that seed or sell that seed, you should have a license. Those kind of deals happen all the time. I mean, there is a caveat where a farmer can sell seed of his own production on his farm. People have to come to him and get it. As soon as he turns a wheel, puts it on a truck to deliver it to somebody, he needs a seed labeler's license.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, let's say there's 10 farmers together.
Yeah.
They're only using within their 10 people. They're not selling it to...
Yeah, technically, if they're just doing business within their farms, I think, there's ways that they don't need a seed labeler's license. Would I like to see them licensed? Yeah, if it's going to hit retail at all, we have to protect the consumers. But if it's some farmers doing some deals, horse trading, that stuff happens, I understand it. So I'm not hunting that kind of thing down, really, to be honest.
If the knowledge, though, what is the variety that starts with? So if it's PVP, it can only be sold as certified. So you really have a window to decide. Ogle isn't protected anymore, so yeah, you can do this. If it's a protected variety, which then royalties go back to the originator to give you better varieties, then you've crossed the line. So be aware of that. I know that it's oats. From crop improvement, and I don't know how many varieties we have. Antigo was talked about, whatever we got probably a dozen of improved varieties. There is part of the market that oats is oats. Crop improvement and the advertising promotion of those varieties are showing the differentiation of those. But in the marketplace, sometimes it's hard for us. When my grandfather got started in business, the importance of each variety was important, and everybody knew that. Now we talk to farmers who are in corn and soybeans and corn and soybeans and corn and soybeans. They talk about oats, but they don't differentiate the variety. Case in point, University released in Siler, released Forage Plus, and now it's done Laker. These are improved forage types that yield 20 to 30% more. And you put them for forage, and you put them in with peas, and they're 30% more yield. Meanwhile, you'll have people taking oats, a lot of times ogle, which is a short variety, gets rust, doesn't yield as much, 30% less, and they're planting oats and peas. Okay? And they're all thinking they're doing the same thing, but they're not. It's 30% less. And then again, the problem is a farmer doesn't plant two varieties, so he never sees the difference, right? So you got to go back to what is the variety that this group is saving. You can do ogle. You can do something that's off patent, that they're 17 years old. Those are all okay. And then you're into that oats is oats. Makes no difference if it's anything, it's just oats. So there is some room for that. And that's the dilemma we have economically. Nobody's making any money in agriculture right now. Everybody's trying to save seed, control costs, and all those kind of things. So that's that floor. Where do you want to be? Now there's some more value if you can be a certified producer, have it inspected, put a blue tag on it, support that this is an improved variety, and some royalty comes back to the university, in the case of oats, because that's where you get them. In the case of some other relationships, there's other licensing mechanisms on some of wheat and some of those things too. Okay, and if you were actually, and then likewise there's hybrid rye now, if you sat in that yesterday. So there's all kinds of tiers and places, and it's just, where do you want to be in the integrity of?
Yeah. It's that same group of farmers. If you're dealing with something outside of just like cover crop seed, you're dealing with small grains. If you're not tracking that variety, you're all pooling the stuff, you're growing it, and one of those farmers decides, oh, I got a lot of extra seed here, I'm going to sell this. Well, if all of a sudden it's a PVP variety, he could be in deep doo-doo because you guys didn't keep track of it, and all of a sudden he's in violation of something that you got to be careful of the varieties. You really need to be looking into it. And honestly, that's how these varieties develop. They have to get their royalties so that they can keep working. That's how they're supported. So.
Yeah, the classic save seed, if you got a question, is winter wheat with rye in it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't ever really see it till the end, and it's about this much bigger. So you can go drive around and know who saved the seed. And quite frankly, with forage rye and that, and in those fields, and then you have volunteer rye from the year before, that stuff gets perpetuated, and you can drive around the neighborhood even if you don't know agriculture and know that it's what's going on. So, and that will become more of a problem. Someone else has a question.
I was just going to add, there's a couple of seed varieties that we imported from Canada, planted on our farm in the last year or two. And I was wondering if there was a farmer that was a neighbor that wanted to plant that variety and grow it, what are the rules around it?
And this is,
we bought from Canada.
is it rye?
One is Danco rye. It's not a hybrid rye. It's no
Okay.
rye. It's just not available in the U.S. You go to a night seed, Canada to buy it, and ship it on a pallet. And the other is also called CPL, which is from Senegal.
Yeah, there's.
They might be in that database.
They probably are. I didn't print a bunch of these, but I do have some. Thank you.
So if they're not PDP, it doesn't matter? If it's
They'll be on that
Canada
website.
Or US, or are there any legal?
Yeah, the patents can cross internationally.
Yeah.
I mean, the first thing to look for is blue tag,
Yeah.
right? So we all know blue tag, a blue tag in the United States anyway, for the most part, is reserved for certified seed.
But Greg, in his example, if he's selling it to somebody, and let's eliminate the person coming to his farm to pick it up, doesn't he, I mean, regardless of PVP or not, doesn't he have to have a seed labeler's license?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, there was a question.
Yeah, this year we saw a lot of unplanted corn. And I know in Iowa, there's a program where if you want prevent plant money, you've got to put in a cover crop. And that has potential to push this cover crop market at the same time that we've got a year that's high in vomitoxin. And, I'm going to say, I do have a seed labor's license, I'm a member, but I expect to see the cover crop sales kind of go up. And to what extent is it legal to sell, what was certified seed a year ago that came in with the intent to be essentially pastry flour, soft red liver wheat? Can that then be legally sold as a VNS cover crop? No. Okay. Because you've got a real we've got a very high and muddy Mississippi River this year, and I'm a real advocate of cover crops because that's what they're going to stop or at least help with. And I would really like to see it if professional organizations that have the backbone system here, which includes the Crop Improvement Association, were as pro-cover crop as possible. Because I think just for soil conservation reasons, environmental reasons, that's where more energy needs to go. And all of a sudden, we kind of have a resource that we're not going to be able to use otherwise. Unless we go to distilling, but that's a lot of booze.
Yeah, the original intention of that seed was, or going to be flour.
Yeah, but we have a reason we can't sell it as that.
No, the first thing you need to know, I mean, if you know if you know the variety, would be to just contact the owner of the variety and say, give him the scenario, because that's the person that really is affected by those kind of sales.
But on the other hand, remember, there's not a lot of markup in cover crop. There's farmers.
No.
We're getting $3.60 for corn right now. Are not going to have the money to buy the cover crop.
Yeah. Chances are that person is going to be like, oh yeah, go ahead. This is all right. But
Yeah.
all you need is that blessing
Right.
and move forward.
See,
I think most of the people in agronomy and agriculture understand the needs sometimes. But it's my job to protect the consumer, and it's also my job to enforce PVP and Federal Seed Act. So I go out and take a sample. I'm gonna go buy the book.
And what is that other program, the FMP? What's currently the Trump money? Is there any cover crop requirement associated with that?
I don't believe so.
There should be. Because here you've got government giving out money, but not putting a string for conservation.
Yeah.
Actually,
It
the
can be a
Fed
state act.
part that has a cover crop
Something that-
requirement.
Oh, it does. Okay. There is a P.
It does have a cover crop requirement, the FEMA.
The federal,
It's your crop insurance side of it to be eligible for the crop insurance through FEMA.
that
There-
would be the prevent plant.
Prevent plant. There's a cover crop component to that. And that does include using, I don't want to use the word certified seed here, approved, I believe that their word is approved seed.
The approval is the germination rate. because
Approval would be
that's
many of the things that are accompanying a certification of seed, but it doesn't have to be, as I understood, a blue tag seed.
I did hand out, there's a little color brochure, or one-page thing about cover crop. Yes. That's the Association of American Seed Control Officials, which is my counterparts throughout the country, Canada, and USDA, and then in part with the American Seed Trade Association. We're really pushing hard because we're seeing a lot of noxious weeds, Palmer amaranth and things moving on cover crop seed, and people aren't, they see cover crop and they don't call it seed for some strange reason. It's still seed. So we're pushing really hard to make sure that people that are buying cover crop seeds, make sure it's tested,
Yeah.
make sure it's legitimate seed. It's
And
not,
a good lab testing it.
yeah.
Because there's a horror story out there. It's not a story. It's not a fabricated story. It's a horror story of a lab and a company that went through CRP seed. It was labeled as CRP seed. That's a familiar term to many. And it was used on ground in Iowa and Minnesota. And you're lucky that you're in Wisconsin if you happen to. That seed did not come into Wisconsin, and it infested it with Palmer amaranth. And really, instantly to an agronomist like myself and many farmers, the value of that ground changed instantly. Really, it did. $8,000 or $10,000 ground is worth a lot less now because of that. There's lawsuits, but a lab actually certified it as amaranth free. They're in trouble. As I understand, that lab is in big trouble. Private lab, not a state one. And of course, that seed dealer bagger is done. They're done. So there's reasons for protection, and little buying groups together, they could hurt themselves per your question. I would imagine you were talking about winter rye as the ultimate cover crop north of I-80, I guess. We do a lot with that. Practical Farmers does a lot with that. And it's very useful product and organic matter build, erosion control, stabilization of soil, all things that everyone in this room is all about. And how good are we going to be about it if that winter rye was a weed vector? Not too good.
Well, I do cleaning rye as cover crop seed by, basically custom for farmers. And, I can look at a bucket, a big load of weed seeds that were taken out.
But you can.
Yeah.
What?
I hear you. I'm trying to work that way. But, on the other hand, it's the cheapest way to do cover crop is to broadcast your own seed that you combine.
Yeah.
Although rye tends to stay pretty weed-free from the early path. But not always.
Yes, it does. Yeah, winter rye has a lot of useful utility. It also presents a complexity in the cover crop world.
Yeah.
The allelopathy.
The nightmare he's talking about in Iowa, for instance, they had only found Palmer amaranth in, I think, 4 or 5 counties to that point. And in 1 year, it was in 53 counties in that state. Fortunately, the Palmer they were finding had not had the resistance yet. So they were able to cull out a lot of it. I haven't talked to Robin Krusner in a while, but it wasn't as dire as it sounded at first, but still a mess.
Well, then here's the Palmer amaranth question. Yeah, it's relatively resistant to glyphosate, but what are the other herbicides that you can use to knock it out?
It's becoming, they've found resistance into up to 7 different modes of action now in Palmer. So,
4D?
yeah, they're having to physically remove it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how these cotton farmers and stuff down south are dealing with it. They're going through with crews, and some of those stalks are as big as a baseball bat, and some of those plants are taller than a combine. We sure as heck don't want it up here.
There's 750,000 seeds per plant.
Yeah.
The prolificacy of this thing is huge.
So given, you may not want to talk about Hemp, but given the fact that most of the hemp seeds have been bred for production out west, what do you think needs to happen for that industry to gain some integrity?
Well, I'll tag team with Greg on this. There's a couple things. 2 weeks ago, fellow directors from crop improvements around the country, we took a tour of Colorado, and there was a guy that had 1,000 acres of hemp, and he is in a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against a seed company that he thought he was buying feminized seed.
Which crops like that over the state, right?
And it came out 50-50 male-female. Let me state right up front, for those of you who do not know, you cannot look at a hemp seed and tell if it's male or female. You cannot. You have to grow it out. Okay? So, I mean, there are people selling allegedly female hemp seeds for anywhere from $1 to $5 per seed. A pound of hemp seed is between 22 and 25,000 seeds per pound. When we test hemp seed in our office, we have a protocol of how it's handled. It's opened by 2 people. It is kept under lock and key, and we return the sample to the grower. It's more valuable than gold, and we're not going to take any chances. The thing that people are going to overcome this is going with what are called clones. Clones are simply cuttings from a plant. And so, in theory, if I have a female plant and I take a cutting and I grow that out, I'm going to get an identical variety, I'm going to get a female plant, everything. So there is an enormous move in the hemp industry away from seed because of all the problem over to clone. The issue with clones is that it's the Wild West. You're buying cuttings and good luck. The comment that I have made is there are an awful lot of people with stars and dollar signs in their eyes, and when that happens, the hucksters come out. So to that end, the national organization, AOSCA, that Wisconsin Crop and all the others are part of, I am chair of a national ad hoc working group to develop a certification program for hemp clones. There are currently certification programs in potatoes, sweet potatoes, tomatoes, and what we're looking at is probably using sweet potatoes as at least a starting point for a model for certification of hemp clones. But the problem is,
So you're saying,
but
you're saying
quick.
clones to develop seeds to go back to planting? Period.
No, just you take a cutting, plant it, and then you could, and the nomenclature is the one that you take the cutting off of is the mother, then you have a daughter, and then you can take a cutting off the daughter and make a granddaughter. And the question is, there's a degradation in vigor. There's, are there other issues that come in? We don't know. But the big problem that's happening in hemp is there are so many hucksters out there.
Yeah.
That there are, like I said, people with dollar signs and stars in their eyes. They're buying stuff off Amazon, they're buying stuff off websites that it's up this day, it's shut down the next, and when you've bought junk, there's nobody to go after. My colleague in Colorado told me he got a call from a group of farmers in Oklahoma that had put in 1,000 acres of hemp, 2,000 seeds per acre at $1 per seed. So do the math real quick, 2 million in the ground, okay? They were lucky if they were getting 20 seeds per acre emerging. And he said you could drive a half mile through the field and it was barren. And they're saying, what do we do? And they can't find the seed dealer.
As far as Wisconsin goes with hemp, it's pretty early in the game. As we see processors and the infrastructure grow in Wisconsin, so will the hemp production, if that's the way the market dictates. Can we grow hemp in Wisconsin? We can grow. My farm was a hemp farm. I still have hemp growing on my fence rows.
That's what I was thinking.
I've got hemp everywhere. So you want hemp?
Yeah, but Greg, I'm gonna be Debbie Downer.
What difference in the seed that you're talking about that is so poorly?
I'm gonna be Debbie Downer. You wanna kill the hemp industry in one fell swoop? The hucksters, this Oklahoma thing, that gets out, you folks are gonna talk among yourselves, and one of you gets burned like that, and none of you are gonna get involved for years. You wanna kill the hemp industry? These guys that are taking cream off the top and walking away and leaving people holding the bag, they're gonna kill the industry quicker than DEA ever wanted to.
Fence line hemp is very, very dangerous. Fence line hemp. So we're running out of time?
Not quite.
Not quite.
Questions?
Time for a couple more questions.
Okay. Any
I
more?
have a question, kind of more back to the
Production agriculture.
cover crop
Okay.
subject we were on here just a minute ago. So I have thoughts of kind of as an opportunity for extended rotation, buying blue tag cereal rye from a wholesaler and have them fly it on, or I would plant it in the fall after a cash crop.
Right.
Say like combine beans or combine, I drill it the next day. Grow it for seed and harvest it the following summer, June, July, whenever. Put it in my wagon, truck, whatever. Is there a problem with taking it back to a company or a pilot? Are they gonna say, oh, where does this seed come from? Do you have any credentials? And pouring it in, have the pilot put it in his plane, flying it back on my cornfields within a month?
On his own
I mean, it's more of a question for them, but I didn't know if that's like a scenario you've ever.
No.
Yes, I have. And if it's going to your own, but if you're selling it to the pilot, it might not come back to you.
I mean, I would pay him.
I think that's a problem.
Okay.
I would pay him to fly it, but it's my seed. Right now, I'm paying, $17, $18 for the seed and $17, $18 for the pilot. Where this guy, it's like, he's talking about, that's a big expense. If you could,
It is.
if I could combine it, and maybe even combine enough for 2 seasons.
Yeah, how it goes back onto your own piece of
Okay.
ground, I don't think the seed usage is going to have whether it's flying it on, bringing it to the fertilizer plant and having them somehow air plant it on, or you doing it yourself. I don't think there's anybody gonna ever squawk about that.
No.
Okay.
But you can get in murky water with some of the contract planters. I mean, they need to know the varieties just like anyone else does.
Yeah, I
mean,
didn't know if
need to
they
be
had
tracking that
like,
stuff.
they had to keep a diary. This is what I planted on these acres this day type of thing, and they gotta know what it is. It's a question for them that I'll
Yeah.
have to address.
Yeah, it's about being responsible. Most farmers nowadays are pretty wise to the stuff, so keep good records.
But I think that most varieties of rye are out of PVP, right? There aren't very many active So if it was a, you know, Elbon or even a Rustic, Hazlitt, those types are not protected anymore, right?
I'd have to look on the website,
Yeah.
so.
Rye is a lot more open for intellectual protections, to my knowledge, than the other small grains.
I have to concur with that.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that the seed industry, and actually for reasons of, not the seed industries, we're looking for earlier rise or hybrid rise that might crimp earlier by days for many days. 10, 12, 14 days, we're getting rise that can be earlier crimped to give us the cultural weed control
Yeah.
that we're looking for. Rye is not the one that's probably, you know, these other cover crops of diversity are maybe of somewhat more interest to those people who, you know, whether it's radish, whether it's kale or turnip. There's some interest there because there's some expense in having those products developed. And they are protected. Those come protected. But you'd find yourself pretty taxed to save seed from those.
Another thing I would caution too is if you're gonna make that investment, know what you sow.
Yeah.
Test it before you spend the money planting it, because you might have some pretty poor germination in there, who knows?
You could be flying on for $15 an acre dead seed.
Yeah.
No, nothing will piss you off. Oh, sorry. Nothing will make you angrier than flying on dead seed. Quicker, really quick. You're gonna wonder where the culprit was in the field. And we all know that winter rye has issues with slugs. Uniquely, winter rye does. And uniquely, it's more prevalent with surface supply winter rye. Not immune just to the pilot, but maybe an airflow or an air seeder. It doesn't incorporate that seed. Slugs and the formation of winter rye seed are a combination made in pizza heaven, so to speak. Great marriage.
Well, okay, VNS rye, and this is something that some the biggest drawback on the killer of the germination is if you take it, say 15.5%, and it's warm, and you don't have, well, it gets warm because it's wet, and when it gets above warm, there goes your germination.
Yeah.
And so the important thing is make sure that rye is dry and cool.
Sure.
And, you know, if you're doing it the same season, chances are you're okay on germ test, but you can send it in because that's what the customer wants.
Hence the value of Greg's suggestion, get it tested.
Yeah.
Yeah, know what you sow.